You walk into a room, and suddenly you feel it. That tightening in your chest. The awkward glance around, hoping someone might notice you're there. And then you see them. The person everyone naturally gravitates toward. Not the loudest, not the most attractive, but somehow they own the room. You wonder, what do they have that you don't? It's not charm, and it's not luck. It's presence. The world rarely teaches us that presence is a skill. It's not something you're either born with or not. It's cultivated. You were never taught that people don't really respond to perfection, but to a particular type of energy. That feeling of being around someone who sees you, who makes you feel like you matter. That's the kind of presence that turns the invisible into the unforgettable. You might have spent your whole life trying to impress. Maybe you've played roles to fit in. Funny, smart, polite, mysterious, hoping one of those would finally unlock connection. But what if the key was something much simpler, much more powerful? What if all it took was to be unapologetically real? You don't need to become someone else. You need to become more you. The you that's been buried under years of trying to be enough. The you that's alive, radiant, honest, and grounded. Becoming magnetic doesn't start with the outer world. It begins within. And the truth is, you already have everything you need. You just forgot how to use it. That magnetic pull people feel around someone isn't about how many books they've read or how cleverly they speak. It's about how you feel when you're around them. Do you feel safe? Do you feel seen? Do you feel at ease? To be magnetic, you don't impress people. You awaken them. You don't dominate the space. You own your space calmly, with quiet strength. And that strength is contagious. Think of someone in history who had this kind of impact without shouting. Nelson Mandela walked into rooms filled with people who opposed him, yet carried such presence that even his enemies listened. He didn't have to demand attention. His groundedness did the talking. Now let's bring it back to you. Where do you start? You start by examining the signals you send without even realizing it. When you walk into a room, what do you believe about yourself? That belief is louder than your words. People hear it in your tone, feel it in your posture, and sense it in your energy. If you've ever felt invisible, it's not because you lack value. It's often because your inner voice has been whispering doubt for too long. You've internalized stories that say you're not enough, not interesting, not worthy. But those stories aren't truth. They're echoes, and it's time to change the story. Let's rewrite it right now. You are not invisible. You've just been dimming your own light. Presence is the art of turning the lights back on, one internal switch at a time. It starts when you stop performing and start embodying. When you replace performance with presence, you become undeniable. This presence isn't about taking up more space. It's about taking up your true space. Try this. Tomorrow, walk into a room and don't try to impress. Don't rush to talk. Just arrive. Breathe. Stand tall. Make gentle eye contact. Let go of the need to be someone and simply be with the people there. You'll be amazed at how that subtle shift in energy starts drawing people in. Magnetic people don't need to chase attention. Their presence commands it, without force. Because when someone radiates calm, grounded energy in a chaotic world, they become like a lighthouse, a steady beam of certainty, and people can't help but move toward that light. But this isn't a magic trick. It's a practice. And just like strength is built in the gym, presence is built moment by moment in how you show up to your life. When you speak to yourself with compassion instead of criticism, you train your nervous system to trust you. When you hold eye contact with confidence instead of fear, you rewire your belief in your own value. And when you walk through the world as if you belong, because you do, you change the way the world responds to you. Because here's the deeper truth. People reflect back the energy you bring. If you carry self-doubt, they sense it. If you carry self-respect, they mirror it. If you carry joy, they feel it. And that's why the journey of becoming magnetic always begins inside. This moment right now, your choice to listen, to reflect, to shift, is where the transformation begins. Not by doing more, but by being more of yourself. So yes, you can become that person. The one others are drawn to. The one who makes others feel better simply by being there. The one who doesn't need to speak loudly to be heard. And you don't need to fake it. You only need to remember who you are without fear. Because the opposite of invisibility isn't fame, it's authenticity. And that's what makes you unforgettable. Now that the light has turned back on, it's time to learn how to manage the very energy you carry into every room you enter. Because your energy is your message, and that's where we go next. You've stepped into the room with presence. The light within you has been turned back on. But now, a question quietly arises. What exactly are you radiating? People feel your energy before they hear your words. It slips through your body language, weaves itself into the spaces between your sentences, and colors the emotional tone of every interaction. The hard truth is, energy doesn't lie. You may say all the right things, but if the energy behind them is anxious, guarded, or resentful, people will sense it, even if they can't explain it. Your energy precedes you. It's your calling card. And while you might not always be conscious of it, others are constantly responding to it, whether they're drawn in, pushed away, or left neutral. This is why radiating isn't the same as performing. Performance is what you do to get attention. Radiating is what happens when you remove resistance, when you let what's real shine through. It's the difference between acting confident and being grounded, between faking kindness and embodying calm generosity. When your emotional energy is aligned with who you are, when it's clean, present, and unburdened, it becomes magnetic. And to get there, you first have to become aware of what you're transmitting right now. Ask yourself, what am I carrying today? Is it resentment? Fear? Pressure to prove? Or is it openness? Curiosity? Compassion? Your emotional state leaks. If you've been rushing all day, carrying frustration from a past conversation, or obsessing over what people think, your energy becomes heavy, even if you paste on a smile. But when you ground yourself, breathe, and reconnect with your calm inner space, that subtle shift in frequency changes how people feel around you. Consider the historical figure of the Dalai Lama. He's not physically imposing. He doesn't raise his voice. Yet people from all over the world are drawn to his presence. Why? Because he radiates peace. Not because he tries to, but because he is peace. His internal state has become his external influence. That's the art. Becoming magnetic isn't about external techniques. It's about internal alignment. It's about deciding what energy you will carry before you enter a room. Let's take a look at the kind of energy that repels. Chronic complaining, judgment, sarcasm, passive aggression, neediness, or the exhausting need to be on all the time. These energies come from unhealed parts of ourselves, and they push others away without us realizing. On the other hand, there are energies that pull people in like gravity, a calm steadiness in your tone, a sense of lightness in your eyes, the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to impress but shows up fully present, a willingness to listen without interrupting. These things may sound small, but they're deeply felt. Think about the people you naturally like being around. What is it that makes you want to linger in their company? It's not always what they say. It's how you feel in their presence. Safe, seen, unrushed. That's what energy does. It communicates your internal world to the external one without a single word. So how do you change your energy if you're not feeling your best? First, slow down. Your nervous system needs space to breathe. Before walking into a conversation, take a few deep breaths and silently remind yourself, I am safe. I don't need to perform. I'm just here to connect. Second, release. If you're carrying resentment or fear, acknowledge it. Feel it, and then let it move through you instead of stuffing it down. Suppressed emotion becomes static in your field. Others can't see it, but they feel it. Third, invite new energy. Joy, curiosity, playfulness. These aren't just personality traits. They're frequencies you can tune into intentionally. Smile at a stranger, even if your day isn't perfect. Ask someone how they're really doing, not just to make conversation, but because you care. Be present in your body, not just your mind. Remember this: energy is infectious. If you light up the room with even a small ember of grounded presence, you're giving others silent permission to do the same. In a world addicted to speed, stillness becomes a superpower. In a world full of cynicism, sincerity becomes irresistible. Energy is like a scent. People remember how you made them feel long after they've forgotten your words. That's why managing your energy isn't selfish. It's a gift to everyone you interact with. And yes, you'll still have bad days. You're not a robot. But even on the hard days, you get to choose the energy you bring. You can choose patience over pressure, grace over self-judgment, warmth over withdrawal. And that choice, repeated consistently, changes your entire relational orbit. Here's something else to remember. People mirror energy unconsciously. If you show up anxious, others tense up. If you show up relaxed, others exhale. This is why your energy doesn't just shape your experience, it shapes the entire interaction. Try this. The next time you enter a space, be it a meeting, a party, or even a small coffee shop, pause for 5 seconds. Take a slow, intentional breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Remind yourself, I am here. I am enough. I bring peace. Then enter. Notice how people respond differently. This is the beginning of energetic leadership. Not because you control others, but because you lead with your presence. You shift the room, not with force, but with frequency. The more you practice, the less you'll need to do, and the more you'll naturally be. That's when people stop just hearing you and start feeling you. And when people feel you in that way, calm, clear, and kind, they remember you. They trust you. They want to be around you. Because in a chaotic world, peace is magnetic. Now that you understand how energy speaks louder than words, it's time to harness the next piece of the puzzle. The sacred art of listening. Not just with your ears, but with your whole presence. There's a moment, almost imperceptible, when someone begins to open up. Their voice softens, their shoulders drop just slightly, and something unspoken passes between you. That moment doesn't happen because you said something brilliant. It happens because you were fully there. Real listening is one of the rarest gifts in the modern world. People are used to being heard halfway, if at all. They speak into the noise, hoping to be noticed, often walking away from conversations feeling more alone than when they entered. But when someone listens, not just to words, but to the soul beneath them, walls crumble. Trust is built. and connection deepens faster than any clever sentence could ever create. You might think you're a decent listener. Most of us do. But take a closer look. Are you listening, or are you just waiting for your turn to speak? Are you forming your response while they're still talking? Are you subtly judging, evaluating, fixing? Listening isn't about staying silent. It's about being present. Presence is more than eye contact and nodding. It's when the person across from you feels your attention, like a weightless blanket over the conversation. Warm, grounding, undivided. And that's what makes it magnetic. Because presence is felt. Think about someone like Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, whose quiet, attentive presence made children and adults alike feel deeply safe and seen. He wasn't flashy. He didn't rush. He simply was there, fully, for whoever was in front of him. And that's why people still speak about him in hushed tones of reverence decades later. Listening in this way is an art form, and like any art, it can be practiced and refined. So let's break it down. Start with your body. Lean in slightly. Uncross your arms. Keep your phone out of sight. Let your body say, "You matter. I'm here with you." Then engage your eyes, not to stare, but to connect. Maintain soft, kind eye contact. Let your gaze say, "I see you." Now shift your attention inward. Silence the voice that wants to judge, fix, or compete. Let the moment be about them, not about proving your insight, not about relating their pain to your own. Just them. This doesn't mean you become passive. Active listening is engaged, alert, alive. It means responding with subtle cues. "I hear you." That sounds hard. What happened next? These simple words invite depth. They give permission to go further. But here's where most people trip. They hijack the moment. Someone shares a loss, a dream, or even a joy. And instead of staying in that space with them, we say, "Oh yeah, I went through something like that too," and begin our own story. It feels like connection, but it breaks the flow. The better move? Stay in their world just a little longer. Let their experience breathe. Ask questions that extend the scene. What was the hardest part for you? What surprised you most? How did that change you? These are not interrogation tactics. They are invitations. Because the truth is, people open up when they feel safe. And safety is created when someone listens without trying to fix, change, or overshadow. Here's something to remember. The deeper you listen, the more people trust you. This is how magnetic people build relationships fast. They don't dominate conversations. They disappear into them. Their curiosity is sincere. Their attention is pure. And the result? People walk away thinking, "There's something about that person. I feel so comfortable around them." Listening also reveals what isn't said. Tone, hesitation, a glance away. These are clues to the emotional world beneath the words. And when you notice them, you can respond not just to what was said, but to what was meant. This isn't manipulation, it's empathy in action. Let's say someone tells you about a stressful day at work, but their voice trembles slightly at one moment. You could breeze past it, or you could gently pause and say, "That part sounded like it really got to you." That moment? That's where trust grows. But here's the key. You don't do this to impress. You do it to understand. Listening is leadership. It's relational leadership. People are more influenced by someone who listens to them than by someone who constantly advises them. When someone feels heard, they soften. Their defenses drop. They want to collaborate, trust, and follow. Imagine a manager who always interrupts versus one who says, tell me more, and actually means it. Who would you rather work with? Who would you follow? And beyond work, this applies to relationships of all kinds. Friendships deepen when one person says, "I'm here," not "here's what you should do." Intimacy in partnerships is built not on problem solving, but on the quiet courage to just be with the other in their mess. So how do you become this kind of listener consistently? First, create margin. If your mind is overwhelmed, you can't listen deeply. Give yourself time between tasks. Breathe before a conversation. Arrive centered. Second, get curious. Let curiosity be your posture in every conversation. Not interrogation, not nosiness, just genuine interest in the inner world of the person in front of you. Third, be okay with silence. Don't rush to fill it. Silence often draws out the most real part of the other person. Let it do its work. Fourth, remember, this is not about you. Your role is to witness, to be a space, not a spotlight. And finally, treat each conversation like a sacred exchange, because it is. When someone speaks to you from the heart, they are offering something real, something rare. Receive it with reverence. The world doesn't need more talkers. It needs more listeners. When you become one, you change lives. Quietly, powerfully, permanently. And now that you've learned to hear beneath the surface, it's time to explore the other half of connection. How your words, when spoken with clarity and warmth, can touch people just as deeply. Words are not just tools of communication. They are instruments of influence. When spoken with intention, they can soften guarded hearts, build bridges of trust, and spark connections that last a lifetime. But when used carelessly, even with good intentions, they can confuse, deflate, or distance. You've already begun to understand the silent power of presence and the rare art of deep listening. Now comes the spoken counterpart, speaking in a way that others don't just hear, but feel. It begins with a shift in mindset. You are not speaking to impress. You are speaking to connect. Think of someone like Maya Angelou. Her voice carried more than sound. It carried weight, soul, grace. Not because she tried to be poetic or powerful, but because she spoke with clarity, calm, and conviction. Her words weren't adorned, they were true, and people leaned in. When you speak, people aren't just absorbing information. They're sensing your energy, your intention, and often unconsciously, deciding whether they feel safe, valued, and respected in your presence. So what makes speech magnetic? Start with tone. Your tone conveys more meaning than your actual words. You can say, "I'm fine" 100 ways, but only one way means it. People don't just listen with their ears, they listen with their nervous systems, and tone tells the truth. Warmth in your voice creates psychological safety. A calm, measured pace signals grounded confidence. Enthusiasm, when authentic, sparks engagement. But tone is not about dramatics. It's about emotional congruence. If your tone matches your message and intent, people feel aligned with you. If it doesn't, something feels off, even if they can't explain why. Next, clarity. Magnetic speech isn't flowery or convoluted. It's simple, precise, and deliberate. That doesn't mean robotic or boring. It means saying exactly what you mean with heart. Avoid filler. Choose language that lands. Let every word serve a purpose. Now bring in purpose. Why are you speaking? To inspire, to reassure, to connect. When you speak with a clear emotional intent, not just intellectual content, you create resonance. Let's say someone shares a personal challenge. You could respond with, "That sounds hard." Or you could say, "I can see how much that's weighing on you." You've been carrying it quietly, haven't you? The second speaks to the soul, not just the story. Names matter too. When you say someone's name in conversation, it anchors them to the moment. It says, "I see you." It adds humanity to the exchange. "That's a great point, Anna," lands differently than just, "That's a great point." Pausing is another tool rarely used, yet deeply powerful. A brief pause before you speak says, "I'm not rushing. I've considered what you said. I respect this space." It signals presence and thoughtfulness. In a world addicted to speed, a pause becomes an act of emotional generosity. And what about the words themselves? Use language that uplifts. This doesn't mean sugarcoating or being overly positive. It means avoiding unnecessary complaint, gossip, or judgment. These lower your frequency and dilute your presence. Instead, anchor your speech in honesty and empathy. Honesty without empathy can feel harsh. Empathy without honesty can feel hollow. But honesty with empathy, that's connection. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," you can say, "I see it differently. Can I share why?" Instead of, "You always do this," you can say, "When this happens, I feel distant from you." These shifts don't dilute truth. They deliver it more effectively. Let's bring in an example from diplomacy. Former US President Barack Obama. Whether or not you agree with his politics, his communication style consistently reflected poise, clarity, and emotional intelligence. He paused often. He spoke slowly. He used inclusive language. We, together, all of us. He rarely raised his voice, yet commanded attention. Not by dominating, but by inviting. That's the essence of magnetic speech. It's invitational, not confrontational. Another often missed aspect? Storytelling. Even in simple conversation, a small story paints a picture. It brings color to your message. "I was so nervous during that meeting" becomes more alive when you add, "My hands were sweating, and I could barely hold my coffee mug without spilling it." Stories bypass logic and speak directly to emotion. Use them wisely. But just as important as what you say is how much you say. Resist the urge to dominate conversations. Instead, share space. The best speakers know when not to speak. They know that silence isn't emptiness, it's presence. Let your words land. Don't rush to fill the void. Sometimes the most magnetic sentence is the one you didn't say. And finally, check your intention before you speak. Are you speaking to prove or to connect? To defend or to understand? To impress or to express? Every time you speak, you are casting a stone into someone else's emotional waters. The ripple effects of your words are real. They linger. They shape perceptions, trust, and closeness. So speak like someone who knows their words matter. Speak like someone who carries emotional responsibility. Speak like someone who understands that magnetic communication isn't about volume, it's about vibration. Because when your tone is calm, your language is clear, and your intention is pure, your words become unforgettable. And now, having discovered the emotional depth of listening and the clarity of magnetic speech, it's time to step into the invisible source that holds both together. True confidence. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that radiates quietly from within. There's a kind of person who doesn't speak first in a room, yet somehow draws the most attention. They don't need to prove anything. They don't need applause. They're calm, composed, grounded, and you can feel that confidence before they even say a word. This isn't arrogance. It's not bravado. It's not the confidence sold on social media with loud quotes and louder personalities. This is the quiet kind, the kind that whispers, "I know who I am. I know what I bring. I don't need to chase. That's the kind of confidence we're building now. True confidence isn't built by impressing others. It's born from trusting yourself. And that trust can't be faked. It grows in small, steady steps, like the roots of a tree anchoring deeper with each passing storm. You've been taught, by culture, by school, by social norms, that confidence looks like dominance. But that kind of bravado is often brittle. It breaks under pressure. It relies on approval. And when the applause stops, so does the self-worth. Real confidence doesn't collapse like that, because it isn't external, it's internal. It begins with self-awareness, knowing what you value, knowing your strengths, not in comparison to others, but in recognition of your own journey. It's taking the time to ask, what am I proud of? What principles guide me? What do I stand for, even when no one's watching? Most people skip these questions. They chase admiration before they've cultivated self-respect. But magnetic people? They take time to reflect. They build their foundation first. Imagine Eleanor Roosevelt, a woman who once described herself as shy and awkward. Yet she became one of the most respected voices of her era. Not by being loud, but by being solid in her values. Her confidence wasn't a performance. It was principle, and people felt it. That's what makes you powerful, when your confidence isn't about what others see, but what you believe. But let's be honest, building that kind of confidence isn't instant. There's a voice in your head, subtle and persistent, that questions you at every turn. It's your inner critic, and it sounds like, you're not good enough. You'll mess this up. Why would they listen to you? You're not broken for having that voice. Everyone has it. It was designed to protect you. But left unchecked, it becomes the loudest thing in the room. So how do magnetic people deal with it? They don't fight the voice. They reframe it. Next time that doubt creeps in, try this. Don't resist it. Acknowledge it. Say, thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I choose courage today. You're not silencing the critic. You're showing it who's in charge. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward anyway. Want to feel more confident in conversation? Start small. Make eye contact with the barista. Compliment someone sincerely. Speak up in a meeting, not to impress, just to show yourself that you can. Each time you act despite the voice of fear, you collect a vote for confidence. And the more votes you collect, the more your self-image begins to shift. Confidence becomes less of a wish and more of a reality. One of the most overlooked aspects of confidence is keeping promises to yourself. If you say you'll get up early and you do, it's a vote for self-trust. If you say you'll finish that book or go for a walk and you follow through, it's a signal to your brain. I keep my word. These small acts build internal momentum. And eventually, you stop seeking proof from the outside. You become your own proof. Now, take a look at your body language. You don't need designer clothes or a spotlight. Just adjust how you carry yourself. Shoulders back, chin level, breath steady, movement intentional. These subtle shifts don't just change how others see you, they change how you feel. It's neuroscience. Your posture sends signals to your brain, and those signals create emotion. So carry yourself like someone who belongs, because you do. People pick up on this. They can tell when someone is secure. Not because of how they boast, but because of how they move through space. Calm, collected, at ease. And here's the secret sauce: humility. True confidence doesn't need to compete. It doesn't need to compare. It walks into a room and thinks, I'm glad to be here. Not, I need to dominate this space. It connects instead of conquers. Confidence without humility becomes arrogance. But confidence with humility? That's magnetic. It says, I'm not better than anyone, and I don't need to be. It allows space for others. It invites collaboration. It creates ease. You've probably met people like this. They're the ones who make you feel seen without trying, who speak clearly, listen intently, and never make you feel small to feel big. That's the kind of confidence you're cultivating now. Not borrowed, not barked, but earned. And yes, there will still be days when the doubt creeps in. But now you'll have the tools to stand taller, speak softer, and move forward anyway. Because confidence isn't a finish line, it's a practice. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You're not becoming someone else. You're returning to the version of you that already knew, deep down, that they were worthy, capable, grounded. The kind of confidence that doesn't say, look at me, but quietly says, I'm here, and I'm enough. Next, we'll explore how to quiet that critical voice inside, not by silencing it, but by teaching it a new language. Because when your inner world shifts, your outer world always follows. There's a voice in your head that knows how to sound exactly like you. It mimics your tone, remembers every past mistake, and always knows how to twist the knife at the most vulnerable moments. It's the inner critic, the persistent whisper that questions your worth, your choices, your right to be seen. You may have lived with this voice for so long that you've mistaken it for truth. But it isn't. It's old programming. It's the sum of offhanded remarks, childhood fears, cultural pressure, and unhealed shame. It doesn't tell you what's real. It tells you what's familiar. If confidence is the foundation of your presence, then this inner critic is the silent saboteur living in the basement. And it's time to renovate. You can't remove the inner critic entirely. That's not the goal. The goal is to rewire the relationship, to move from letting it drive the car to learning how to let it sit quietly in the back seat. So how do magnetic people navigate that voice? They don't argue with it. They observe it. They interrupt it with intention. And most of all, they replace it with something more powerful: self-compassion. Let's start here. Imagine a friend comes to you feeling nervous about an upcoming meeting. They say, I'm going to screw it up. I always do. No one takes me seriously. What would you say to them? Probably something like, that's not true. You've handled harder things. You're prepared. You've got this. Now imagine saying that same thing to yourself. Hard, right? That's the point. Your inner voice has been trained to criticize, not encourage. But here's the science. Self-talk is one of the strongest predictors of your emotional state. What you repeatedly say to yourself becomes your emotional baseline. The inner critic thrives in vagueness. It says, you're a failure, but never specifies why. You're too much, but offers no path forward. So the first step in rewiring is naming it. Catch the voice. Call it out. Give it a name if you must. Some people call theirs the judge, the doubter, even Steve. The name is less important than the act of distancing. Once you name it, it's no longer you. It's a part of you. Then challenge it. Ask, is that actually true? Would I say this to someone I love? What's the evidence for and against this thought? When you question the critic, its grip loosens. Next, begin building a new internal vocabulary. Not cheesy affirmations, real, grounded truths. Instead of, I'm terrible at this, try, I'm learning. Instead of, everyone's judging me, try, I'm showing up, and that matters. Instead of, I'm not enough, Try, "I don't need to be perfect to be worthy." Over time, these phrases become more than mantras. They become beliefs, and beliefs shape behavior. Take Serena Williams, one of the greatest athletes of all time. She's spoken openly about doubt, about imposter syndrome, about that voice in her head telling her she doesn't belong. But she doesn't let it win. She listens, she breathes, and then she chooses action. That's another secret. The fastest way to silence the critic is to do the thing anyway. Action is a louder teacher than thought. You're afraid of speaking up? Speak up. You fear rejection? Introduce yourself. You think you'll mess it up? Try anyway. Each time you move forward despite the voice, you send a message to your nervous system. We can do hard things, and each repetition rewires your brain. But this work is not just mental, it's emotional. The inner critic is rooted in shame, and shame thrives in secrecy. That's why magnetic people aren't just confident, they're transparent. They admit vulnerability. They normalize mistakes. They talk about fear without letting it run the show. And they also know the power of environment. If you're surrounded by people who echo your inner critic, who belittle, mock, or dismiss your efforts, it's like watering weeds instead of flowers. So guard your space. Curate your influences. Surround yourself with voices that see the best in you, especially on the days you can't see it yourself. Rewiring also requires practice. Consider keeping a journal, not to record what you did, but how you spoke to yourself. Track the patterns. Identify the triggers. Rewrite the script. You might discover, for example, that every time you compare yourself on social media, the critic gets louder. That's valuable data. It tells you where to place boundaries, not to avoid life, but to protect your peace. And finally, remember this: no one has it all figured out. The most confident-looking people also wrestle with doubt. The difference is, they've trained their inner voice to become a partner, not a punisher. Here's a simple practice to start that training. Each morning, before you check your phone, before the world rushes in, ask yourself, what do I need to hear today? What would the kindest version of me say right now? What belief will I carry into this day? Then speak that belief even softly, out loud, and carry it like armor. You'll be surprised how it shifts the trajectory of your day. Because when your inner voice changes, your posture changes, your tone changes, your energy shifts, and everyone else, whether they realize it or not, feels that shift. You're no longer second-guessing every step. You're moving from intention, from clarity, from strength, and that is deeply magnetic. Next, we'll ground that inner shift in real-world habits. Daily actions that build trust with yourself, one promise at a time. It's easy to believe confidence comes from a moment, a breakthrough, a big win, a grand transformation. But real, lasting confidence isn't created in dramatic highs. It's forged in the quiet consistency of showing up for yourself, day after day, promise after promise. When you keep your word to yourself, you build something far more powerful than temporary motivation. You build self-trust. And self-trust is the root of every magnetic presence. You might have a list of goals, ambitions, or changes you want to make. But if you continually break the small promises, wake-up times, personal goals, quiet commitments no one else sees, you start sending a message to your brain. My words don't matter. That message accumulates, and over time, it quietly erodes your belief in yourself. But the opposite is just as true. Every time you follow through, even on the tiniest act, you deposit a vote in the ballot box of identity. I am someone who shows up. That's the power of consistency. It doesn't have to be huge. A 5-minute walk when you said you'd move your body. Drinking water before coffee because you told yourself you would. Pausing before reacting just once because you committed to emotional growth. Small acts, massive signal. Consider the story of James Clear, author of Atomic Habits. He didn't become a world-class writer overnight. He committed to writing a little every day. No massive word counts, just consistency. Now his work has impacted millions, not because he's flashy, but because he followed through. Magnetic people often aren't the most talented or most extroverted. They're simply the most aligned. Their words and actions match. Their energy and behavior speak the same language. You can feel it. You can trust it. That trust begins privately, internally, in the quiet moments where no one else is watching. That's where the seeds of charisma are planted. So let's make it real. Ask yourself, what are the small promises I often break to myself? Not the big ones, just the subtle ones. The snoozed alarm, the skipped journal, the walk you meant to take. These aren't failures. They're clues. Clues that point to where trust is thin. Start there. Choose one micro-commitment, something so small it feels almost silly, and make it non-negotiable. Not because it's huge, but because it matters. Because you matter. And when you keep it, celebrate it. Not with noise or fanfare, but with a quiet nod. I said I would, and I did. Over time, that builds internal credibility. The voice in your head starts to shift. Instead of, "You'll probably quit," it begins to say, "You follow through now." That's identity. And identity drives behavior far more than willpower ever could. Magnetic people carry this quiet integrity. They don't overpromise. They understate and overdeliver. And that makes them trustworthy. Not just to others, but to themselves. Let's bring this to your relationships. Think about someone in your life who says things they rarely follow through on. Even if their intentions are good, you start doubting them. The same thing happens inside your own mind. When your inner voice hears you make promises and watch you break them, a subtle erosion begins. But when it watches you follow through, momentum builds. And that momentum compounds. This is how magnetic people carry internal momentum that you can feel. Their posture isn't puffed up, it's stable. Their energy isn't aggressive, it's anchored. Because they've trained themselves to trust their own direction. And that creates something powerful. Predictability in presence. When you're predictable in the best sense, when people know you'll show up how you say you will, you become safe. And in a chaotic world, safety is rare. It's valuable. It's unforgettable. Even your self-talk begins to reflect that shift. You move from "I hope I can" to "I know I will." Not out of arrogance, but from evidence. You've collected enough data to trust yourself now. And when you trust yourself, others naturally begin to trust you. This also shifts how you handle mistakes. When you break a promise to yourself, you don't spiral into shame. You get curious. You reflect. You recalibrate. You say, "That wasn't like me. I'll do better tomorrow." And you do. Because you're not building perfection. You're building consistency. Even elite performers, CEOs, athletes, and creatives return to this principle. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson famously trains daily. Not for a specific role, but because it's part of who he is. The workouts are a ritual. They say, "I keep my promises to me." That's why his presence is so commanding. He radiates alignment. So ask yourself, where am I out of alignment? Where can I start being ruthlessly consistent? What one thing, done daily, would shift my energy? Maybe it's breath work. Maybe it's stretching. Maybe it's a 2-minute gratitude note. Whatever it is, keep it small and make it sacred. Because sacred habits build sacred self-belief. Let's be clear. Consistency doesn't mean rigidity. Life happens. You'll miss a day. You'll stumble. That's not failure. It's feedback. The goal is returning to yourself again and again until that return becomes reflex. And as you do this, you stop searching for motivation. You become the source of your own drive. And that kind of inner consistency isn't loud, but it is felt. It speaks before you do. It calms rooms. It grounds conversations. It holds boundaries without force. It attracts without effort. Because people can feel when you are someone who shows up, not just for them, but for yourself. Next, we'll expand this foundation outward, into your relationships. Because when you live in alignment, the next magnetic step is learning how to serve and connect without needing anything in return. There's a quiet power in the person who gives without agenda, the one who listens without interrupting, shows up without demanding attention, and offers support without keeping score. That kind of presence is magnetic, not because it takes up space, but because it creates space. Generosity isn't about wealth or grand gestures. It's about energy, intention, and the unseen value you bring to every interaction. When you become someone who adds to the room, who elevates, encourages, and uplifts, people remember how they felt around you, and they want more of it. Let's redefine generosity. You might think of it as favors, help, gifts, or acts of service, but in its purest form, generosity is presence without condition. When you give someone your full attention, that's generosity. When you offer a kind word without expecting one back, that's generosity. When you help someone succeed, even when no one is watching, that's generosity. This is the essence of emotional wealth, giving from overflow, not obligation. Now think about how rare this is. Most interactions are transactional. People unconsciously calculate, what do I get out of this? And when you break that pattern by giving without strings, people feel disarmed, even inspired. You create an atmosphere of safety. Consider Fred Rogers again. He gave his full attention to every child, every parent, every interviewer. Not because he was trying to impress, but because he genuinely valued people. And that value was felt, not just seen. His presence was a gift. You don't need to be a public figure to embody this. You only need to make a daily choice. Leave people better than you found them. That could mean sending an encouraging text, complimenting someone sincerely, sharing a resource that helped you, introducing two people who might benefit from knowing each other, or simply listening without rushing in to fix. Even small gestures ripple. A smile, a nod, a thoughtful pause, a question that shows you care. These are the invisible threads that weave trust. But here's something just as important. You can't give from an empty tank. Magnetic people aren't martyrs. They aren't people pleasers. They don't drain themselves to fill others. Instead, they protect their peace so they can give sustainably. They understand that emotional generosity only works when it's resourced. That means tending to your own needs, resting, setting boundaries, saying no with grace. Because when you respect your energy, your yes becomes more powerful. Think of it like this. A candle doesn't burn brighter by setting itself on fire. It simply shines. And in doing so, it gives others permission to shine too. So how do you embody this kind of generosity in daily life? First, be intentionally present. When you speak with someone, be with them. Put down your phone. Make eye contact. Listen beyond their words. You don't need to give advice, just presence. In today's distracted world, that presence is a radical act. Second, encourage often and authentically. Don't wait for a milestone. Acknowledge effort. Celebrate progress. Catch someone doing something right and say it out loud. I admire the way you handled that. You bring such calm to the team. Your laughter made my day. These words cost you nothing, but they could be the one thing that shifts someone's whole week. Third, share what you know. If you've read something valuable, pass it on. If you've made a mistake, share the lesson. If you know someone who could help, make the introduction. Don't gatekeep, be a bridge. Fourth, practice emotional generosity. This is the willingness to hold space, to let someone express their fears, anger, or grief without trying to fix them. To say, "That sounds really hard," instead of "at least," or "you should." To be that space for someone is to become unforgettable. And finally, forgive with intention. Nothing drains your energy more than holding on to resentment. That doesn't mean excusing harm. It means choosing freedom. Forgiveness is an act of emotional generosity, not toward the other person, but toward yourself. Release the weight. Make room to give again. Now, let's talk about something most people overlook. Energetic hygiene. This is the invisible boundary that separates real generosity from self-sacrifice. It means knowing your limits. Saying, "I'd love to help, but I don't have the capacity right now." And trusting that your worth isn't tied to overextending. You're not helpful when you're depleted. You're not magnetic when you're resentful. True giving comes from fullness. That fullness grows through rituals. Maybe it's a walk in silence, a morning journal, an hour unplugged, a playlist that resets your mood. Whatever helps you return to yourself, do it often. Because the more grounded you are, the more light you radiate. And here's something magical. When you give generously, without attachment, life tends to respond in kind. Opportunities find you. People speak well of you when you're not in the room. Doors open that hustle alone couldn't crack. Why? Because generosity is an energetic investment. It builds invisible equity in the hearts of others. It creates connection, not based on need, but on resonance. But let's be clear, this doesn't mean becoming a doormat. Magnetic people are generous and boundaried. They give with clarity, not with guilt. They know that when you give from fullness, you empower. But when you give from emptiness, you enable. So ask yourself, who in my life lifts others simply by being there? How do I feel after I've been generous? Empowered or exhausted? What small act of presence or encouragement can I offer today? Start there, because the most magnetic people are not chasing anything. They're serving, they're showing up, they're giving value without needing applause. And in a world trained to take, they become the rare presence that gives freely. In the next section, we'll explore the shadows, the people who trigger you, drain you, challenge you. Because being magnetic doesn't mean avoiding conflict. It means learning how to stay anchored in storms. It's easy to feel magnetic when things are smooth. When people are kind, conversations flow, and your energy feels aligned. But the true test of your presence comes when you're confronted with the opposite. Resistance, tension, conflict. Difficult people, and they will come. Not everyone will match your frequency. Some will misunderstand you, dismiss you, or try to provoke a reaction. Some will carry their own wounds and project them onto you. Others may simply be in pain, and pain, unprocessed, tends to spill. But here's the truth. Being magnetic isn't about avoiding these people. It's about responding differently. Responding with conscious grace instead of emotional reactivity. Let's first dismantle a myth that staying calm means being passive. That's not it. Calmness is not weakness. It's power in restraint, strength under control. Imagine Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of Nazi concentration camps. Amid unimaginable suffering, he taught this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. That space? That's where your magnetism lives. When someone pushes your buttons, your nervous system lights up. It wants to defend, attack, or withdraw. That's biology. But maturity says, pause, take a breath, step back, not physically, but emotionally, and ask, what's really going on here? Is this about me? Or are they bleeding from a wound I didn't cause? Do I need to defend myself? Or just stand in who I am? This shift moves you from reaction to response, and that shift changes everything. Let's break it down. First, recognize the types of difficult people. The critic who constantly points out flaws, the manipulator who twists your words, the energy vampire who drains your spirit, the passive-aggressive one who jabs without naming the conflict, the hothead who erupts and destabilizes every space. They each present a challenge, but also a gift, because each one offers a mirror, a reflection of how well you regulate, hold boundaries, and protect your peace. So what do magnetic people do? They don't personalize. If someone lashes out, they understand. This is information about that person's internal state, not a verdict on my worth. Think of it like this. If someone throws a grenade into the room, your job isn't to catch it, it's to step aside. Sometimes silence is strength. Sometimes a calm, "I hear you," is more powerful than a clever comeback. Sometimes walking away is the most aligned response you can offer. But this doesn't mean tolerating abuse. Boundaries are magnetic. When you calmly state, "I'm not available for this tone," or "let's take a break and revisit this later," you protect your energy and model what self-respect looks like. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself in front of them. And here's something else. Empathy doesn't mean permission. You can say, "I understand they're going through a lot," and still choose distance. You can say, "I see their pain," and still decline the invitation into chaos. Magnetic people are generous, but not with their peace. They give presence, but not passivity. They offer compassion, but not self-sacrifice. So how do you hold that energy in a triggering moment? Start with awareness. Feel the heat rising? That's your cue to breathe. Drop into your body. Anchor. Don't let their storm pull you off center. Speak slowly, respond later if needed. Just because they're urgent doesn't mean you have to be. Then, reframe. Ask, what pain is this person carrying? Not to excuse, but to gain perspective. People act out when they feel unseen, unsafe, or unhealed. When you see past the behavior to the emotion, you regain power. You choose how to move, not reactively, but intentionally. Next, communicate with clarity. I value our relationship, but I need us to speak respectfully. I'm happy to continue this when we're both calm. These aren't ultimatums. They're standards. Standards aren't walls, they're doors. They say, "Here's how I invite you to meet me." And sometimes, despite your best efforts, the pattern continues. That's when you must consider distance. Some connections aren't meant to last. Some relationships are complete. It's okay to let go with love. It's okay to say, "I still care for you, but I need space to protect what I've built inside myself." Forgiveness may be part of that process, not for them, but for you. To release the story, to unhook from the resentment, to walk forward untethered. And forgiveness doesn't mean reconnection. You can bless and release. You can forgive without reopening the door. Let's talk about your nervous system. If you're constantly around volatility, your body absorbs that energy. Over time, it becomes your baseline. That's why energetic hygiene isn't just emotional. It's biological. You need regulation, grounding, calm routines, people who speak gently, spaces where you exhale fully. Surround yourself with voices that don't raise yours, with presence that invites peace. You deserve that, because here's the deeper truth. When you learn to stay calm around difficult people, you become the anchor. You become the reset point in the room, and people are drawn to that. Not because you overpower, but because you stabilize. This is leadership. Quiet, energetic leadership. You walk into chaos, and your presence says, "There's no fire here." You enter a storm, and your body language says, "We'll be okay." You speak with clarity, and people exhale. And maybe they don't say it, but they feel it. I don't know what it is about this person, but I feel safer when they're around. That's magnetism. It's not about being liked. It's about being rooted. And in the next section, we'll explore how to build strong, clear boundaries. Not walls, but invitations to mutual respect. Because protecting your energy is not selfish. It's how you serve from a full cup. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges. Bridges built from clarity, respect, and emotional intelligence. They define where you end and others begin. Not to separate you from people, but to create the conditions under which healthy, respectful connection can thrive. Too many people associate boundaries with rejection. They worry that saying no makes them harsh, unkind, or selfish. But the opposite is true. When you set clear boundaries, you make relationships safer, not only for yourself, but for everyone involved. A boundary says, "This is how I respect myself, and this is how I'd like you to respect me too." Imagine walking into a home where there are no walls, no doors, no signs of what belongs where. It's confusing, disorienting. You don't know where to sit, where not to step. That's what relationships feel like without boundaries, chaotic and unstable. But when a home is clearly marked, here's the kitchen, here's the living room, take off your shoes at the door. People feel comfortable. They know how to engage. They feel invited, not uncertain. Magnetic people are boundary keepers, and they don't just set them, they embody them. You can feel it in how they carry themselves, in how they say yes, and in how they say no. In the steadiness with which they protect their time, energy, and values. They don't need to explain their limits with long justifications. Their clarity is their explanation. Let's get real for a moment. If you find boundaries difficult, you're not alone. Most of us were never taught how to say no without guilt, especially if you were raised to believe that love means self-sacrifice, that being liked means being agreeable, or that your needs come second. But here's the transformation. Boundaries are not a rejection of others. They are a profound act of self-honoring. You're not saying, "You're bad." You're saying, "This doesn't work for me." You're not shutting people out. You're inviting in only what aligns. Consider Oprah Winfrey, a global icon, but also someone who's been very open about the power of boundaries. She said no to countless requests, even opportunities that seemed amazing, because they didn't align with her purpose or peace. That discernment didn't limit her. It amplified her impact. That's what aligned boundaries do. They filter the noise and preserve your signal. So how do you build boundaries that are firm but kind? Start with these pillars. Know your values. If you don't know what you stand for, you won't know what to protect. Define what matters most. Peace, respect, honesty, time, energy. These become your compass. Listen to your body. Your nervous system knows before your mind does. Tight chest, knotted stomach, resentment rising. These are signals that a boundary may be needed. Don't ignore them. Communicate clearly and calmly. A boundary isn't a threat, it's a statement. I'm not available for last-minute changes. I need time to myself this weekend. I'm not comfortable discussing that topic. Say it once. Say it respectfully. Let it stand. Hold the line without drama. You don't need to justify, over-explain, or defend. People may push back. That's okay. You're not responsible for their reaction, only your response. Expect discomfort, especially at first. When you begin setting boundaries, people used to your flexibility may feel confused or even offended. That's not a sign you're wrong. It's a sign you're changing the dynamic. Hold steady. And what if someone doesn't respect your boundary? That's data. Pay attention. Repeated disregard isn't miscommunication. It's misalignment. You can love someone and still step away. You can care deeply and still choose yourself. Because here's the deeper truth. People respect what you consistently enforce. If you set a boundary but never follow through, it becomes noise. But when you gently uphold your limits, again and again, you teach others how to engage with you. You teach them what love looks like with dignity. And boundaries don't just protect your energy, they increase your capacity to give. When you stop saying yes out of guilt, you start saying yes from truth. When you stop tolerating mistreatment, you make space for real intimacy. When you stop overcommitting, you bring your full presence to what matters most. Let's be clear. Boundaries are not the opposite of generosity. They enable generosity because you're no longer giving from depletion. You're giving from overflow. This also changes your relationship with time. You stop filling your calendar to avoid disappointing others. You start asking, does this align with my priorities? Does this energize me or drain me? You begin living on purpose. Boundaries also improve your relationship with yourself. Each time you honor your own line, you say, I matter. My well-being matters. I am not an afterthought. And that reinforces confidence at the deepest level. You begin to trust yourself more. You stop resenting others. You stop people-pleasing. And instead of spreading yourself thin, you radiate a quiet, unmistakable power. A power that says, I know who I am. I know what I need. I'll honor that, even if it's hard. Let's make it practical. If someone always texts you late at night and it disrupts your sleep, set a phone boundary. If a colleague constantly dumps their tasks on you, clarify roles and say no. If a family member brings up triggering topics, gently redirect or walk away. If you feel pressured to say yes to events you dread, give yourself permission to decline without guilt. Each of these is a micro-boundary, and micro-boundaries lead to macro-alignment. Now imagine a life where your calendar reflects your values. Your relationships are mutual. Your energy is intact. Your mind is quieter. That's not a fantasy. That's what life feels like when your boundaries are in place. And that energy, it's not harsh, it's magnetic. Because people sense when you're not scattered, not resentful, not stretched too thin. They feel your coherence, your clarity, your calm. They don't have to guess where they stand with you. And that makes them feel safe. In the next section, we'll explore another form of communication that speaks even louder than words. The silent messages carried by your body, your face, and your energy before you even open your mouth. Long before you say a single word, your body is already speaking. In fact, it never stops. Your posture, gestures, facial expressions, even your stillness, all of it is delivering a message. And in the language of magnetism, nonverbal cues often shout louder than speech ever could. You've likely experienced this before. Someone walks into a room and you feel tension without a word being said. Or you meet someone and, for no obvious reason, you feel instantly at ease. That reaction isn't magic, it's biology. It's your nervous system responding to subtle, unspoken signals. And here's the beautiful part. Nonverbal communication is a skill. It's not reserved for the naturally confident. It's not locked behind charisma you were or weren't born with. It's trainable. And magnetic people know how to train it well. Let's begin with posture, the architecture of your presence. How you hold your body is often the first message you send. Slouched shoulders, closed-off limbs, head down. These signal defensiveness, insecurity, or disengagement. But when you stand tall, spine long, shoulders relaxed, chin level, you signal calm self-assurance. You don't have to dominate the room. You just have to look like you belong there. That's magnetic. Try this. Before your next interaction, do a quick body scan. Uncross your arms. Relax your jaw. Roll your shoulders back. Breathe into your belly. Hold yourself not like you're about to defend, but like you're about to connect. This subtle change not only shifts how others perceive you, it also shifts how you feel about yourself. Your physiology informs your psychology. Stand with strength, and your mind begins to echo it. Now let's move to the face, especially the eyes. Your eyes speak volumes. Direct but soft eye contact says, "I see you. I'm with you. I'm open." But darting glances or a fixed, intense stare can either read as nervousness or intimidation. The sweet spot? Gentle, comfortable eye contact with natural breaks. A rhythm of connection and space. And your facial expressions, they are emotional translators. A warm, relaxed expression, even when neutral, tells others, "It's safe here." A furrowed brow, pursed lips, or a frozen mask can signal tension or judgment, even if that's not what you're feeling inside. Practice awareness. Let your face reflect your internal openness. A slight smile, not forced, just soft, can shift an entire interaction. People are drawn to warmth. Your face is a mirror. What you project, others will reflect. Now let's talk about gestures. When you speak with your hands visible, palms open, gestures flowing, you project honesty and engagement. Closed fists, hidden hands, or overly stiff arms can signal guardedness or anxiety. Natural hand movements add rhythm and resonance to your words. Think of them as underlining your message. Not exaggerated, but expressive. And yes, mirroring matters too, but not in a robotic or manipulative way. Subtle mirroring, matching someone's energy, posture, or pace, creates unconscious rapport. It says, "We're in sync." But it must be genuine. If it's forced, it feels like mimicry. If it's natural, it feels like resonance. Think of Barack Obama again, not for politics, but for poise. He didn't just speak well, he moved with congruence. He paused. He made eye contact. His body followed his message. That alignment created trust. Now here's a surprising one: stillness. In a world addicted to speed and nervous fidgeting, stillness is commanding. When you can be still, calm hands, steady breath, grounded feet, you radiate certainty. Stillness says, "I am not in a rush. I trust this moment. I'm present." Stillness, when used intentionally, becomes one of the most magnetic signals you can offer. And what about your energy field? The thing people sense even before posture or movement. This isn't woo-woo, it's real. The vibe you carry is a mix of physical cues, emotional residue, and mental clarity. People feel your emotional climate before you speak. If you're anxious, they tense. If you're grounded, they exhale. This is why energetic hygiene matters just as much as body language. If you walk into a room carrying unresolved irritation or nervousness, it leaks through every gesture. But if you take even 60 seconds before a meeting to breathe deeply, reset your focus, and drop into your body, you show up differently. People feel it, and when you consistently show up with aligned body language, people begin to trust you faster. Not because of what you say, but because of what you embody. This builds relational safety, a key element of magnetism. People won't always remember your words, but they'll remember how they felt in your presence. Did they feel seen? Did they feel rushed, judged, or did they feel welcomed, understood, grounded? Nonverbal mastery helps you answer those questions not with effort, but with presence. Let's make this practical. Before any interaction, a date, a job interview, a coffee chat, pause and align yourself. Posture. Am I standing tall and open? Face. Am I expressing warmth or tension? Eyes. Am I present or distracted? Gestures. Are my hands visible, fluid, supportive? Breath. Am I breathing deeply or shallowly? Energy. Am I radiating safety, calm, and openness? You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be aware. Awareness is 80% of the work. The rest is practice. And the more you practice, the more your body begins to naturally reflect your inner state of confidence and calm. You won't have to think about posture. It will align. You won't have to force warmth. It will emerge. Because when the inside shifts, the outside always follows. And when both are aligned, you become magnetic without even trying. In the next section, we'll move deeper into the source of this alignment. The energy you radiate, not just through gestures, but through your very presence. Because your energy is your silent message, and it travels faster than words. You can say all the right things. You can master your posture, polish your tone, refine your gestures. But if the energy behind it isn't aligned, if what you radiate doesn't match what you project, people feel it. Energy is the atmosphere of your presence. It's the subtle current that surrounds you, invisible yet deeply felt. It's the emotional temperature people sense when they enter your orbit. And here's the thing, energy doesn't lie. We've all felt it. Someone enters a room and suddenly the mood shifts. Brighter, calmer, lighter. Or someone else walks in and tension spreads like static. Nothing has been said, but something has been transmitted. Your energy is your frequency, and people, consciously or not, are constantly tuning in. This is why magnetic people don't just communicate well, they radiate well. So what kind of energy are you radiating? Pause and check in. Is it frantic, heavy, drained, guarded? Or is it spacious, centered, light, curious? The good news is, energy is fluid. You can shift it. You're not stuck in the emotional climate of your past hour or your past life. But first, you need to become aware. Let's start by identifying the energy drains, the invisible leaks that pull you out of alignment. These could be overwhelm from saying yes too often, resentment from unmet expectations, overthinking from perfectionism or self-doubt, negativity loops from toxic environments or habits, disconnection from your body due to stress or speed. These states don't just affect how you feel, they affect how you're felt. So the first shift is choosing to become the guardian of your own energy. That means protecting it from people, places, and patterns that consistently pull you out of alignment. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Think of your energy as a garden. You water what you want to grow. You pull weeds when needed. You don't leave the gate open for anything or anyone to trample through. Now let's talk about energy expanders. What lifts your frequency? What restores your sense of joy, lightness, or groundedness? For some, it's movement. Yoga, walking, dancing. For others, it's solitude, nature, music, prayer, or laughter. deep breaths, creative expression, being near someone whose energy uplifts you. The specifics don't matter. What matters is that you track it. Know what lifts you. Make it part of your ritual, not once a month, daily, even hourly if needed. Because the most magnetic people are not the ones with perfect lives. They're the ones who consistently return to themselves. That return creates resonance. Consider Robin Williams, a man whose presence was like a light switch for joy. He wasn't just funny. He radiated playfulness, curiosity, humanity. People didn't just laugh because of his jokes. They felt better in his presence. His energy changed rooms, and yours can too. So how do you intentionally cultivate magnetic energy? Start with your breath. Your breath is the bridge between your mind and your body. Shallow, rapid breathing signals anxiety. Deep, slow breathing grounds you. Before you speak, connect to your breath. Clear your emotional field. If you're holding on to frustration, shame, or fatigue, acknowledge it. Move it. Don't suppress. Journaling, movement, sound, crying, silence, all are ways to release. Choose your emotional anchor. Before you enter a space, ask, what energy do I want to bring? Calm, lightness, warmth. Intention guides direction. Practice gratitude. It's not cliché, it's chemistry. Gratitude releases dopamine and serotonin, lifting your baseline mood. Even a 30-second reflection, what am I grateful for right now, can shift your field. Smile, not to impress, but to express. A genuine smile activates mirror neurons. It invites others to relax. When you smile with presence, not performance, you change the room. Be where your feet are. Presence is powerful. When you're here fully, not on your phone, not in your head, people feel seen. That's rare. That's magnetic. Let's make it practical. The next time you walk into a room, pause at the door. Take one full breath. Plant your feet. Recall a moment of gratitude or joy, and enter with that energy. Not to perform, but to offer. Not to impress, but to share. People won't always know why they like being around you, but they will say, there's just something about them. That something is your energy. And this doesn't mean being bubbly all the time. Magnetic energy isn't about being high energy. It's about being coherent, aligned, calm, present. People are tired of noise. They crave stillness, and stillness is louder than you think. Energy is also contagious. The more grounded you are, the more others calibrate to that. You become the tuning fork for the room. You lead not with volume, but with vibe. So ask yourself, what energy am I bringing into this space? Does it reflect who I want to be? Is it mine? Or have I absorbed it from someone or something else? Then choose again, because that's the most empowering truth of all. You can choose your energy, not always instantly, but always eventually. And when you do, when you become intentional with your energy, you stop chasing attention. You start attracting alignment. In the next section, we'll look at one of the simplest, most overlooked tools of connection, the genuine compliment. Because when you make people feel seen, not for what they do, but for who they are, you create instant, lasting rapport. There's something unforgettable about the person who notices the small things, the quiet effort, the resilience beneath the surface, the sparkle of kindness in the midst of a tough day. And when that person puts what they notice into words, when they speak it aloud with sincerity, it becomes a gift, a compliment. And if given with presence, it can be transformative. You've been on the receiving end before. Maybe it was a passing comment that stuck with you for days. Not about your looks or achievements, but something deeper. I always feel calm when I'm around you. Or the way you stayed patient in that moment. I really admire that. Compliments like these don't flatter. They affirm. They say, I see you, and what I see matters. This is the power of genuine appreciation. And magnetic people wield it masterfully. Not as flattery, but as a form of emotional generosity. Let's be clear. Compliments aren't about manipulation. They're not tools for gaining favor. They're recognition, freely offered, with no strings attached. But like any powerful tool, compliments can be used poorly. When insincere, they feel empty. When overused, they lose meaning. When shallow, they skim the surface. A magnetic compliment cuts deeper, not by being dramatic, but by being specific. Let's break it down. Specificity is the soul of sincerity. Instead of great job, try. The way you explained that made it so easy to understand. I can see how much thought you put into it. Instead of, you're so nice, say, you always remember the small things about people. That makes others feel seen. Notice the difference? One is generic. The other is rooted in presence. It requires observation. It tells the other person, I'm paying attention. Character over appearance. Our culture over-celebrates surface. Compliments about appearance are fine, but they rarely go deep. Instead, praise values, behaviors, and effort. You have a strong sense of integrity. Your calm presence really steadied the room. You handled that with so much grace. It inspired me. These go beneath the surface, and that's where trust lives. Process over result. Celebrate not just what someone achieved, but how they got there. I know that presentation took courage. You didn't just deliver it, you owned it. People want to be seen not just for their outcomes, but for their journey. When you recognize that, your words become mirrors of their resilience. Now let's talk about timing. You don't need a special occasion to affirm someone. In fact, some of the most impactful compliments happen in ordinary moments, after a team meeting, during a quiet walk, in passing. The surprise of being seen in a small moment often carries more weight than being celebrated during the obvious ones. And delivery matters. A compliment is more than words. It's energy. Say it slowly. Let it land. Hold eye contact, even briefly. Smile, not to impress, but to express your presence. And then let it go. Don't linger. Don't make it awkward. Acknowledge, then move forward. Like placing a small gift gently into someone's hands and walking on. You never know the weight your words might carry. For someone battling self-doubt, your comment might become a lifeline. For someone who feels unseen, it might rekindle belief. Now let's flip the lens. Receiving compliments. This can feel harder than giving them. Many people deflect. Oh, it was nothing. I got lucky. You're just being nice. This pushes away the connection. Magnetic people receive with grace. They don't overinflate. They simply receive. Thank you. That means a lot. Or, I really appreciate you noticing that. Receiving well is an act of humility and openness. It honors the giver, and it reinforces your own sense of worth. Consider Keanu Reeves. Universally respected not just for his talent, but for his presence. He compliments others freely, crew members, fans, interviewers, and when complimented himself, he doesn't deny or overindulge. He smiles, nods, and lets it land. That humble receptivity is powerful. You don't need to be famous to embody this. You just need to become intentional. So let's make it practical. Here's a challenge. Today, notice 3 people, not what they wear, but who they are. Then speak one thing aloud to each. You handled that with a lot of patience. I really appreciate the way you made space for everyone's input. The energy you brought into the room made a difference. And watch what happens. You'll start seeing more, feeling more. Your awareness will sharpen, your heart will soften, and your relationships will deepen. Because people crave being seen, not for their masks, but for their essence. And when you become the kind of person who sees others, who really sees them, you become unforgettable. A genuine compliment is a bridge, a thread of connection, a small seed that often grows into trust, gratitude, even healing. In the next section, we'll explore how to use another timeless bridge, storytelling. Because while compliments reflect what you see in others, stories reveal who you are. And when told well, they invite others to walk beside you. Stories are the language of the soul. Long before we had written language, before philosophy, before frameworks, we had stories around fires, in the dark, in whispered hopes and spoken lessons. We told stories to survive, to belong, to connect. And even now, no matter how advanced our tools or busy our lives, nothing pulls us in faster than a well-told story. You know the feeling. Someone begins, "Let me tell you what happened," and your body leans in before your mind even realizes it. Time slows. Distractions fade. You're no longer listening from the outside. You're inside the moment. That's the magnetic power of storytelling. Magnetic people know this. They don't flood conversations with facts. They don't lecture. They paint pictures. They share pieces of themselves, not in polished perfection, but in emotion-filled narratives that make you feel like you've lived it with them. And when you do, you don't just know them, you trust them. But not all stories create connection. Some fall flat, sound rehearsed, or miss the mark. The difference? Intention, emotion, structure, truth. Let's start with intention. Don't tell a story just to be interesting. Tell it to invite, to offer a glimpse into your journey, your lesson, your lens on life. A story without a purpose is just noise. A story with purpose becomes a bridge. Ask yourself before you speak, what am I hoping they feel? What truth am I trying to offer? What part of me am I willing to reveal? Now let's move to emotion. Facts inform, emotions transform. When you tell a story, go there. Revisit the feeling. What did your heart go through? What did your body feel like? Were you scared, ashamed, elated? Take us there. Not through explanation, but through description. Not, I was nervous, but my palms wouldn't stop sweating, and I kept pretending to check my phone so I didn't have to make eye contact. That's the line that draws people in. Because it's real. It's felt. Consider Brené Brown, a world-renowned researcher on vulnerability. Her TED Talk didn't go viral because of data. It went viral because she told stories. Imperfect, human, funny, honest. And through those stories, people saw themselves. That's the goal. When your story becomes a mirror, the connection deepens instantly. Next comes structure. This doesn't mean you need a script, but every powerful story has a rhythm. Beginning, the setup, the context, the where we are and why it matters. Middle, the tension, the turn, the challenge or change. End, the insight, the shift, the takeaway. Not as advice, but as a shared revelation. Let's say you want to explain a moment that shaped your confidence. You could say, I used to be shy, but I worked on it, and now I'm better at talking to people. That's fine, but now try this. I remember walking into a networking event, holding my water like a shield. I must have circled the room 5 times pretending to look for someone I knew. I didn't say a word for 30 minutes. Then one woman smiled at me. That's it. Just a smile. and somehow, it broke the dam. I walked over, introduced myself, and said, "I'm new to this. I'm kind of terrified." She laughed and said, "Me too." That one moment showed me, connection doesn't require performance, just honesty. Now we feel you, we're with you, and most importantly, we remember, because stories stick, and don't be afraid of vulnerability. Magnetic stories aren't about you being the hero, they're about you being human. Share your failures, your missteps, your confusion, but don't wallow in them. Share what you learned, not as a sermon, but as an offering. When you do this, people stop seeing you as flawless. They start seeing you as real, and real is where trust begins. Now add visuality. Your brain loves images. When you tell us the color of the walls, the sound of the rain, the sting of the silence, we're there with you. Try this. Before you tell any story, close your eyes and ask, what did it look like? What did it feel like? What did I notice? Then bring us into that scene, not by describing everything, but by anchoring us with just a few well-chosen details. And finally, remember, you don't need to be a master storyteller. You just need to be willing to go beneath the surface, willing to take a risk, willing to let someone see a part of your journey that wasn't polished, but was real. So where can you use stories? Everywhere. In conversations, to break the ice or deepen a moment. In leadership, to inspire without preaching. In relationships, to connect without effort. In conflict, to explain without defensiveness. In gratitude, to reflect without cliché. You don't need to launch into an epic tale. Sometimes a 30-second anecdote carries more resonance than a 10-minute monologue. I used to dread Monday mornings too, until I found one little ritual that shifted everything. I'll never forget the first time I froze in a meeting. It taught me more than any leadership book ever did. Funny story, I actually almost gave up on this project 3 times. These micro-stories offer texture. They say, I've been there. And that belonging is magnetic, because when you tell your story, you invite others to trust theirs. And when that happens, something deeper opens. Connection rooted not in performance, but in shared humanity. In the next section, we'll explore how to carry that connection into every interaction, not by trying to be interesting, but by becoming genuinely interested in others. Because people don't care how much you know until they feel how much you care. You don't have to be brilliant to be magnetic. You don't have to be the most interesting person in the room. You don't need the best stories, the sharpest jokes, or the deepest insights. You simply need to be genuinely interested. In a world where so many are waiting for their turn to speak, the rarest and most irresistible quality is a quiet, sincere curiosity about the person in front of you. It doesn't take charisma, it takes presence. Because when someone feels you want to know them, not to gain something, not to appear polite, but because you truly care, their guard drops. Their stories come out. They lean in. And often, they open up in ways they haven't in years. That's the invisible gift of attention. It's not just polite, it's healing. The most magnetic people don't shine by making others look at them. They shine by making others feel seen. Let's start with the simplest tool. Asking questions that matter. Not small talk, not scripted check-ins, but questions that show you're really listening. Instead of, how's it going? Try, what's been lighting you up lately? What's something that challenged you this week? If you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing? These aren't interrogation tools, they're invitations. And when you ask these kinds of questions, you send a clear message. I'm interested in the real you, not the resume you. Of course, not every moment calls for depth, but even casual chats can hold sincerity. It's about how you ask, how you listen, how you respond. Let's explore active curiosity. This isn't about having the perfect question. It's about staying engaged. Following threads. Asking follow-ups not because you should, but because you want to know more. Someone mentions they've been feeling overwhelmed. You might say, "What part feels most heavy right now?" Or they mention a win, and you ask, "What did it take to get there?" This kind of curiosity isn't about being nosy. It's about validating their experience. And validation is magnetic. It says, "Your inner world matters here." It creates emotional safety. But genuine interest requires one key shift: letting go of performance. You don't need to be impressive. You need to be engaged. That's it. Sometimes people try too hard to relate. Someone shares something vulnerable, and the listener jumps in with a story of their own. It might seem empathetic, but often it takes the spotlight off the other person too soon. Magnetic people don't rush to relate. They hold space. They stay with the other. Instead of, "That happened to me too," try, "What was that like for you? How did that affect the way you see things now? What helped you through it?" These moments deepen connection, not through information, but through presence. Another magnetic practice: remembering details. People light up when you say, "You mentioned last week you were nervous about that meeting. How did it go?" Or, "Is your daughter feeling better now?" You don't need a perfect memory, just intention. A quick note after a conversation, a mental bookmark. It doesn't take much, but it speaks volumes. Here's another powerful tool: use their name, not excessively, but intentionally. Saying someone's name shows attention. It personalizes the moment. I appreciate that, Eric. That must have been tough, Maya. Names ground us in presence. They anchor us to one another. But being interested isn't just about what you say. It's about how you listen. Do you interrupt? Drift off? Plan your response while they speak? Or do you lean in, nod, hold eye contact, and allow silence? Because silence is a powerful form of interest. It says, "You don't have to rush. I'm here. I'm not trying to move this along." And when someone feels that, they begin to trust you. Not because you said the right thing, but because you gave them the space to be fully themselves. Now let's talk about judgment. Curiosity and judgment cannot coexist. If you want to be magnetic, you must become a safe place, not just for joy, but for complexity. When someone shares something you don't understand or agree with, stay curious. Ask, "What led you there?" Or, "Can you tell me more about that?" You don't have to agree. But when you make someone feel like they don't need to defend who they are, you become a rare and trusted presence. This is especially powerful in conflict. Instead of reacting, ask, "What's underneath that for you?" Or, "What are you really needing right now?" Curiosity disarms. It transforms tension into conversation. And here's the paradox. The more interested you are in others, the more interesting you become to them. Because genuine curiosity feels like warmth. It feels like care. It feels like home. You become the kind of person people want to be around. Not because you entertain them, but because you honor them. You help them see themselves more clearly, and they begin to associate your presence with insight, reflection, and peace. Now imagine this across your life. In your workplace, you're the one who understands what drives each team member, not just their tasks, but their motivations. In your relationships, you're the one who makes your partner or friends feel deeply understood, not with grand gestures, but with consistent, thoughtful attention. In passing interactions, at the coffee shop, in the elevator, on the phone, you leave people better than you found them, simply because you noticed them. This isn't about being a social butterfly. It's about being present enough to care. So ask yourself, when was the last time I made someone feel truly heard? Where can I slow down and notice more? What would it feel like to be the most curious person in the room? Not for show, but for connection. Start there. Because when you stop trying to be interesting and start being genuinely interested, something shifts. People drop their guard. They bring you their real stories, their real questions, their real gratitude. And suddenly, you're not just liked, you're trusted. In the next section, we'll explore the deeper fuel behind your presence, the quality of your energy. Because the emotion you carry into the room doesn't just affect you, it's contagious. And magnetic people know how to radiate the kind of energy others want to be around. People might forget what you said. They might forget what you did. But they rarely forget how you made them feel. And more often than not, that feeling comes not from your words or actions, but from your energy. Your energy is the invisible current that flows through everything you do. It's what people sense about you before you speak, and what lingers long after you leave. It's your emotional climate, the atmosphere you carry into the room. And make no mistake, energy is contagious. Walk into a space with grounded calm, and people settle. Enter with light-hearted enthusiasm, and faces brighten. But show up with stress, tension, or negativity, and the temperature shifts instantly. That's why magnetic people don't just manage what they say or how they look. They manage their energetic state, not by pretending everything's okay, but by choosing, moment by moment, how they want to show up. Let's be clear, you don't need to be high energy to be magnetic. This isn't about being bubbly or on all the time. In fact, some of the most magnetic people are quietly radiant. They don't demand attention. They invite presence. The key isn't how loud your energy is. It's how aligned it is. Alignment means your thoughts, emotions, and actions are flowing in the same direction. When you're aligned, people feel it. You're not scattered. You're not pretending. You're here, and that resonance is incredibly attractive. So how do you cultivate magnetic energy? It begins with awareness. Ask yourself regularly, what am I carrying right now? Is this mine or something I picked up? Is this the energy I want to contribute? You'd be surprised how often we move through the world with borrowed tension. A sharp email, a rushed morning, a conversation that left a residue. These cling to your energy and ride with you into every interaction, unless you clear them. One of the fastest ways to shift your energy is through movement. Even just standing up, stretching, or taking a walk resets your nervous system. Energy lives in the body, not just the mind. And stagnant energy often needs a physical outlet. Another tool, breath. Your breath is your anchor. When your energy starts spiraling, whether into anxiety, irritation, or depletion, return to it. Try this. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Repeat 3 times. You'll feel your energy recalibrate. But beyond resetting, magnetic energy comes from fueling yourself with what uplifts you. Ask, what expands my energy? Is it time in nature? Listening to music that shifts my mood? Laughing with someone I trust? Creating something? Sitting in stillness? Magnetic people are not energetic martyrs. They're energetic investors. They know what recharges them, and they honor it. Because when your inner battery is full, your presence becomes a source of light for others, not a drain. This also means setting boundaries around what contracts your energy. Some examples: doom scrolling social media first thing in the morning, engaging in gossip or venting loops, saying yes when you're already over capacity, consuming content that triggers comparison or anxiety. You don't have to eliminate everything. Just get intentional. Protect your emotional frequency like you would your physical health, and then choose to radiate on purpose. Before a meeting, a conversation, even a phone call, pause and ask, what do I want them to feel in my presence? What energy am I bringing into this space? What energy do I want to leave behind? This is energetic leadership, and it's one of the most underestimated forms of influence. Because people are drawn to energy that feels safe, clear, and uplifting. Not because it entertains, but because it stabilizes. Think of someone like the Dalai Lama or Maya Angelou. Their energy wasn't loud, it was grounded, steady, unshakable. They carried decades of presence with them, and it radiated through even the smallest smile or sentence. That's not something reserved for icons. You can cultivate that too, through practice, choice, and awareness. One of the most powerful daily practices is gratitude, not as a checklist, but as a lens. Gratitude shifts your baseline frequency. It tunes you into abundance instead of lack. It redirects your focus from what's missing to what's already working. Start with this. In the morning, name 3 things you're grateful for. Fresh air, hot coffee, a kind message. At night, name 1 thing that went better than expected. When you feel stress rise, find 1 thing you can appreciate in the moment. Gratitude is not denial, it's alignment. It reminds your system, I have resources, I have breath, I am safe. That alignment creates coherence in your field. And coherence shines magnetism. Now let's talk about humor and lightness. Magnetic people don't take themselves too seriously. They can laugh at their own stumbles. They bring a sense of play, not because life is easy, but because they choose not to carry it all so heavily. A quick smile, a funny observation, a willingness to be silly. These things disarm. They signal, it's okay to relax here. And when you can make people feel at ease, not by fixing their problems, but simply by being easeful, you become unforgettable. So here's a practical application. Before you go into any interaction, pause for 15 seconds and ask, how do I want to feel in this moment? How do I want them to feel? What energy am I contributing? Then breathe, ground, smile, and step in with intention, not to control, not to perform, but to radiate. Because the truth is, your energy does more work than your words ever will. In the next section, we'll take this energy and channel it into one of the most underestimated tools of human connection. Sincere, specific praise. The kind that not only lights someone up, but also cements your presence in their memory. There's a moment, often fleeting, when someone feels fully seen, not for their role, their achievements, or how they look, but for who they are beneath all that. And in that moment, when someone acknowledges them with sincerity, something profound happens. They light up. This is the power of meaningful praise, not flattery, not shallow compliments, not the automatic good job, but real, grounded appreciation that reflects attention, understanding, and respect. Magnetic people use praise with purpose, not to manipulate, not to gain approval, but to honor what's true in someone else. And they do it in a way that sticks, not just in the moment, but in the heart. So what makes praise magnetic? Let's start with specificity. Generic praise is like mist. It might feel good for a second, but it evaporates fast. You're awesome is nice, but I really admire how you kept your cool during that chaotic moment earlier. That grounded the whole room, lands deeper. Specific praise says, I see your effort. I noticed your presence. I value your choices. When someone hears something specific, it feels earned, and that makes it memorable. Next is authenticity. Praise doesn't need to be frequent. It needs to be real. If you say something just to be nice, people feel it. Energy doesn't lie. But when your words come from genuine noticing, they carry weight. Think of it like this. Shallow praise is a surface wave. Genuine praise is a ripple that moves through someone's core. Even something as simple as, I noticed how patient you were with that customer. That takes restraint and maturity, can be a turning point in someone's day or week. Timing also matters. You don't need to wait for a performance review or a major success. Often, the most powerful praise comes in the middle of the ordinary, when someone is just doing their best, when they least expect to be seen. Those are the moments where your words matter most. Now let's talk about delivery. Magnetic praise is delivered with presence. No need for drama or a big speech. It's quiet, direct, personal. Look them in the eye. Smile if it's natural. Let the words come through you, not as a performance, but as an offering, and then let it land. Don't diminish it. Don't follow it with, it's not a big deal. Just offer it and move on. Like placing a small gift in someone's hand and trusting them to receive it. Because here's the deeper truth. Sincere praise is a form of emotional generosity. You're saying, this part of you matters to me. I want to reflect it back to you. That builds trust. It builds belonging. And it creates space for deeper connection. Let's also talk about character praise. We're conditioned to praise outcomes. You crushed that project. You got the promotion. You nailed that presentation. But the deepest praise often recognizes who someone is, not just what they did. I love how you include everyone in the conversation. You have a calming presence that changes the energy in stressful moments. You're incredibly thoughtful. It shows up in all the little things you do. These kinds of reflections go past ego and straight to identity. And that's what sticks. Because people are constantly wondering, do others see the real me? When your praise answers yes, it does more than encourage. It affirms existence. Now let's flip it. How well do you receive praise? This is where many people struggle. They brush it off, deflect, downplay. Because praise touches something tender. It confronts the part of us that still questions our worth. But magnetic people receive praise with grace, not arrogance. Grace. A simple thank you, that means a lot, is enough. You don't need to justify it or shrink it. Letting praise land is a form of respect for yourself and the giver. Think of it this way. When you receive praise well, you allow the energy of appreciation to complete its circuit. You affirm the connection. You honor the moment. Let's make this practical. Challenge yourself this week. Give one piece of specific, genuine praise each day. Look for character, not just output. Reflect on someone's impact, not just their task. Speak it aloud, let it land. And also, receive one piece of praise without deflecting. Let it in. Let it settle. Notice how your body responds. Where do you want to squirm, minimize, joke it off? Stay with it. Breathe through it. Own it. Because praise, at its best, is a form of connection, a form of truth-telling, a form of love. And when you become the kind of person who sees people, names their goodness, and reflects it back without inflation or performance, you become the person they remember. Not because you shouted the loudest, but because you whispered something real at just the right time. Praise is light, and people move toward light. In the next section, we'll explore how to harness another timeless source of that light. Your own life experiences, woven into stories that create bridges, spark belonging, and make your presence unforgettable. Your life is a constellation of moments, some filled with triumph, others with pain, many more somewhere in between. And woven through those moments are lessons, insights, and turning points that hold the potential to move others, not through instruction, but through story. Storytelling is one of the most powerful tools you have, not just for influence, but for connection. It's the bridge between what you've lived and what others feel. When told with honesty and care, your stories become mirrors for others to see themselves more clearly. And the truth is, you don't need a dramatic life to tell meaningful stories. You only need to tell the truth about what it felt like to be you. Magnetic people understand this. They don't hoard their stories or embellish them for effect. They offer them with openness, humility, and timing. They tell stories not to say, "Look at me," but to say, "You're not alone." So how do you begin? Start by asking yourself, what stories do I carry that shaped me? What did I learn? What shifted? What broke open something deeper in me? These are often stories about a moment you failed and what it taught you, a time you stood up for something that mattered, a season of grief and the clarity it revealed, a risk you took that changed everything or nothing, a lesson you had to learn the hard way. The goal isn't to perform, it's to reveal. When you share from truth, not from ego, you build trust. Let's look at structure, briefly. Every powerful story contains a setup. Here's where I was. A conflict or challenge. Here's what happened. A transformation or insight. Here's what I learned or how I changed. You don't need drama, you need emotion. People don't connect to your accomplishments. They connect to your humanity. Let's take an example. You could say, "I used to be afraid of public speaking, but now I've improved." Or, "I remember standing backstage with sweat running down my palms. My throat was dry, and my hands shook as I held the mic. My first sentence came out like a whisper. I almost walked off, but I stayed, and by the third minute I was breathing again. I didn't say everything perfectly, but I said what mattered, and I walked off knowing I can do hard things, even while scared." Which version lingers? The second isn't just a story, it's a shared feeling. That's what creates connection. When you share stories like this, you become a guide. Not someone who has all the answers, but someone who's walked a path and is willing to shine a light backward. Here's the key. Stay close to the feeling. You don't need to tell everything. You just need to tell what's true, what it meant to you, how it shaped you. That's where the gold is. And it's not always about resolution. Sometimes the story ends with, "I'm still figuring it out." That's just as powerful. Because that honesty is rare, and people recognize it immediately. Now, consider how to use storytelling in everyday life, in conversations. Instead of saying, "I agree," share a small story that illustrates why. In conflict, share a story from your own experience that reveals what you felt, without blame. In leadership, tell a personal story that illustrates a principle, not just a policy. In love, tell the story of how you knew you cared, how something small changed how you saw them. These aren't long speeches, they're windows. And every time you open one, you create fresh air in the room. But perhaps most importantly, your stories create legacy, not in the grand, historical sense, but in the way you shape how people feel when they walk away from you. When someone says, "I'll never forget that thing you shared, that stayed with me," that's legacy. And here's the paradox. The more personal the story, the more universal it often becomes. When you tell someone about your fears, your doubts, your moments of bravery, they hear echoes of their own. That's how your presence becomes unforgettable. You're not just the one who listened well, you're the one who risked being seen. And in doing so, you gave them permission to be seen too. So here's a prompt. What's one story I've been scared to share because it felt too small or too vulnerable? What's the lesson inside it? Who might it help? Start there. And when the moment comes, offer it. Without needing applause, without needing to impress. Just speak it like a thread between hearts. That's where true impact lives. Because stories, at their best, aren't about you. They're about us. They create belonging. They spark recognition. They remind us that we're more alike than different. And when your words carry that kind of resonance, you become magnetic. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Now, as we draw this journey to a close, let's step into a final reflection. A quiet, grounded space where everything you've learned begins to settle, where the tools and insights become something more, a new way of being. You've walked through the quiet architecture of presence. You've explored the soft power of listening, the integrity of consistent action, and the art of speaking with clarity and warmth. You've touched the essence of what it means to be magnetic, not because of what you have, but because of who you choose to be. And now, as we close this chapter together, there is no grand finale, no fireworks, just a gentle reminder of something that's been true all along. You already have everything you need. Magnetism isn't something you chase, it's something you activate. By being aligned, honest, and present. It's not about shining brighter than others. It's about removing what's dimming your natural light. And it starts small, one breath before you speak, one compliment offered without expectation, one boundary held without apology, one decision to show up, even when you don't feel ready. You don't need to become someone new. You just need to return to yourself. Strip away the layers of performance, dismantle the scaffolding built for approval, and stand there, flawed, real, grounded. That's the presence people crave. Not perfection, truth. So now, you get to choose. Choose to speak when it matters. And stay silent when that matters more. Choose to listen like it's a sacred act. Choose to protect your energy like it's your most precious resource. Because it is. Choose to hold your space in the world. Not with noise, but with certainty. Choose to see others deeply and to let yourself be seen. Because when you live this way, moment by moment, word by word, breath by breath, something remarkable begins to happen. People start to feel better in your presence, not because you fixed them, not because you entertained them, but because you offered something rare in today's world, a grounded, honest version of yourself. And that version of you, present, calm, generous, fully here, is unforgettable. This isn't a performance, it's a practice, a daily devotion to who you're becoming. So go, carry this with you. Smile with your eyes. Pause before you speak. Breathe when things get loud. Let your story unfold, one small moment at a time. And trust, the more aligned you become, the more naturally people will be drawn to you. Not because you need them to be, but because you're no longer chasing anything. You're simply being you, and that is the most magnetic thing of all.